and the food we eat, how everything comes to us, flows through us, and returns back to the mother. We give it thanks. We welcome it in. We learn to look after those circles and the cycles of life which we're a part of, and realize we do have a part to play. We have a role to play in nurturing this life and these cycles. And with that, I open this group to further discussion on this and whatever else evolves. Thank you and welcome, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. Jim, I see you're recording, and I'm going to play a little video to open this, about a 5-minute video. So what I'm going to ask you to do, Jim, is when I play this, I'm going to have you pause your recording because it's probably copyrighted, and I'm not sure you're allowed to use a certain amount of material. Caring for the earth, making sure we still have a place for us and other life on this planet to survive. Being a Keystone species, to me, is just a little bit different of a theme. So I kind of want to go there. So I'm going to go ahead and play this. That's good. Oops. Share screen. So I just see this completely different than what we've talked about. We talk about a lot about reducing our carbon footprint and trying to fix the damage we've done, reforestation, cleaning up the mess we've made in the oceans and other water bodies. This is a whole different level because, one, I think like these starfish and the sea otters, if you watch the other videos on this, eating sea anemones and even army ants that keep the leafcutter ants under control. Is it possible for humanity to be a Keystone species? We have a unique ability to choose to sort of write our own place on this planet that others don't. Starfish just do their thing. They just eat things. And they happen to be in the right place and in the right balance that's been found over millions of years. And they're not going to ever choose to do anything different. Not really a choice. Or we have one. So I'm curious, Jim, too, with you, because you spent some time studying some of these things in college and university. Was this something that came up for you then? I mean, it seems like in this video, the Keystone species was something that happened, in the last century. Kind of a new discovery a little bit.
All these new discoveries that many of the indigenous people have known for generations. Yeah. It's an interesting topic because balance is such a part of it. You can be that sort of species in a good way until you go out of balance, and then it shifts. When they tried to eliminate the wolves, lots of areas of the United States started to decline rapidly. And a lot of species started to die off because the wolves kept that balance. So when the wolves got introduced to Yellowstone, it became quite a study. And yeah, they were definitely a Keystone species. They moved everything back into, or closer anyway, into balance with nature. Now, humans can certainly have that sort of effect. Unfortunately, we tend not to recognize that, and we go too far with so many things we do that we become a negative impact. Again, and it comes into everything we talk about because it almost has to. There's just way too many of us, way too many. So we are the dominant species. We are probably the most prolific of the large organisms on the planet. But that makes it really difficult to be a positive impact. Now, we are in some places. There's places that are working on this. There's several countries in South and Central America working on this. There's some of the, I believe Norway is one of the others working on this. Looking at, okay, how many of us are there? What do we do about that? Obviously, we're not just going to wave a wand and 6 billion people disappear. But how do we, over time, get into balance, and what do we do in the meantime? Because everything we do affects everything on the planet. But we also tend to forget that everything that a lot of the species do affects everything on the planet, including us. Kill off all the bumblebees and see how long we last. Or, we may eat a very weird diet after that. So yeah, I'm not sure. I've tussled with this a lot. I've been in long conversations with groups around it. And is it positive or is it negative? And a lot of it is how you go at it, for sure.
Yeah, I guess I should have said that Western science coined the phrase Keystone species, right? Because and apparently my brain isn't working when it comes to names. But yeah, the South American tribe is kind of famous there. That video, I don't know, it's an hour or more long, but yeah, they talk about that a lot in that video and how they just kept, the waterways running certain ways, and they could tell by certain animals when things weren't going right, and the necessity of 1,000 more years to figure it out, through scientific methods, I guess. But
yes,
kind of what you're saying is too. I think can it be that humanity is both the cancer and the cure at the same time, right? There's only one cure for our cancer. Well, there's probably more than one, but we're the cure, right? The other one is not so pleasant, right? If we go into a global warming and a glacial period and all that. So, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Jim.
I think that's a really good question. Are we both the cancer and the cure? I think more to the point is we have the capability to be one or the other. We could be both. That's not effective, I don't think. But that's interesting. You're talking about that one tribe. And there's so many things I've learned from so many different tribes, because they have been dealing with this for forever. And in talking to some of my friends up in Pine Ridge, and this used to happen too, although now it's more rapid. I'm trying to set something up actually because Jean is going to go up that way. Well, a bunch of them are going to actually leave South Dakota for a while, and they're heading out to the West Coast to team up with the Huron and the Yurok out there and study the waters and the marshes and the rivers and bring what they know about the plains to the people out there, which is really awesome. Sometimes just by writing something and reading a book, we don't really get it. But if we get our hands on it, if we feel it, smell it, taste it, touch it, we start to see what's going on. And I'll go back again to this summer when Chris and I were out there. I could talk to him about what I'd seen there before. We could look at things before us. We could read some articles on it. But then when we stepped into those rivers and we stepped into those marshes and we stepped into those trees, it's totally different. Totally different. We understood. I mean, I'm talking for me. Chris can disagree, but right away I understood. Oh, that's what it meant. So yeah, there's a lot there. Talking stick in the middle. I'll stay available in case somebody has to translate for John.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yes. Oh my God. I have to move. I'm at Jim's, so I'm going in the room. All right. Well, just to say that I do believe that Mother Earth is really good with us. And if we connect more with it, and well, there are many things to be done. We have a lot of job. That's the most wonderful moment to be on Earth right now. And I see the young, and there's a lot to be done. But if we connect really, we'll know what to do to be a good species on Earth, a good children of Mother Earth. That's what we have to figure out. She brings us everything, the air, the water, the food, and we can manage to be better. We can learn to be more connected and grateful for Mother Earth. that's what I'd say answer to the question of the topic today. And we have a meeting, so we have to run. So I'll watch it later on. I thank you. It's very important to talk about that, to share our visions, and to be in action, do our best. You know, I'm cleaning. I won't go in what I'm doing, but actually, I pray a lot with Mother Earth, and I know how she loves us. Yeah. So have a great one. See you soon. Take care.
Thank you. All right, Chris.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Jim. You know, what we learned about nature and how she works. It's one of the beautiful things I liked, about what we were doing, especially seeing the difference in how things works between the redwoods and the deserts of Arizona was a huge, huge shift. And taking the time, always remember when we're going on that high road on the way up to the redwoods and that farming area, and we stopped and look at how the farming areas work. It was just really something to see the shifts in different climate, but also noticing areas where people were producing crops that didn't seem to be suited to the climate around them and the land around them. It's almost forcing an unnaturalness on the land itself. And it just didn't feel right as we went through it. You could feel this wasn't the flow that belonged here. This wasn't natural for this area. And for us to be part of a keystone species, we have to understand the natural flow of the land and what belongs there and work with her, not against her. Whereas, as you say, we can be the cure and the cancer. But a question I want to throw out there, or a couple of them, is what actually is a cornerstone species? When we look at the starfish in the video, they were a cornerstone species naturally just by doing their own thing. Whereas humans, we have observance and things like that. And I contemplate, would we be doing it just because it's a thought process and understanding? But I know we have that ability to feel the natural flow in nature. As I say, when Jim and I were traveling through land, you can feel when things were being forced rather than growing naturally. And it's learning to listen to nature and work with her, which I feel is where we can fit in as a cornerstone species. But we've yet to take that step the way responsibility deserves to be responded to. And responsibility for me is our ability to respond and what the mother's calling for and what we're being called to do. So talking stick in the middle, all yours, Jim.
Yeah, you make some good points there. When humans first appeared, we were certainly not a keystone species. In fact, we were lunch. I guess the dinosaurs were probably the keystone species, but they didn't survive because they did not change and adapt to their environment. So that's interesting. They didn't survive. We did. We flourished too much. And so we are the keystone species now. Well, the lesson is there. We have to continue to change and adapt and be in balance with our environment, or we become the dinosaurs. And who knows who's next? Hopefully, it'll be like a good caring species like the dogs, but maybe the wolves. But they won't be on two legs. Stick in the middle.
Go ahead, Chris.
That's better. One of the things that comes up for me is mentioning that, Jim, is that ability to listen to the lands and what is produced naturally. There's a natural amount of food produced on any area of land. And when we've created a system where we bring water into lands that usually wouldn't have that amount of water, not only are we putting things out of balance, we're not listening to how much population that particular area of land supports naturally. It's like I've spent time working on a farm here in New Zealand, and it's a high country station. We don't do much artificial manipulation there at all because it's too rugged to do that. So we learn what paddocks support what sort of population at what time of the year. we have to listen to the land. We have to understand it and how she works to maximize what we can work with the land. Because on high country station farms, which are mountain properties, literally they are farms on mountains, you've got to work with the land. There's no other option. So talking stick in the middle.
So listen to you when you were talking just a minute ago there, Chris. You can go just a second here, Jim. I just want to round this back up because you talk about listening to the land. And right, that's different than the scientific approach. But I think of the older tribes, not just Native Americans, but I mean early tribes all over the world had a connection with the land. Europe lost it a lot sooner than the Americas did. But I noticed too, like when I watched these the videos of Kogi, it just suddenly came to me as I went to say it. They still have a very scientific approach too. They blended the two together, it seemed like, because there was empirical observation in addition to being connected to the land. And almost like there wasn't really a difference though. That observation was and the listening to the land were almost the same science. I shouldn't use the word science, but they're almost the same discipline. For us, listening to the land and science is two very different disciplines. And I think sometimes we know about Native Americans listening to the land, but they didn't just listen. They had a scientific approach to it, I believe. So we talk about, we reaming the hoop, but, bringing in the new ways and the old, what's good in the new and what's good in the old and bringing them together. So talking to the middle, Jim, did you want to, your hand went up and down.
Yeah. I just took it down while you were talking. That's interesting. For some, how we approach this scientifically or Aboriginal approach is the same. Listening to the land, I taught in university, so I was taught those ways. That they're the same. It's just listening in a different way. What's happened is too many, and you're pointing it out, Robert, too many westernized cultures lost the ability to realize they were listening to the land. Instead, they thought they were just gathering data. And I think that's an error. Right before we came on, a local friend here posted something on Facebook, and I was reading it, and it was a really nice piece with an interesting video. And part of his comment, though, was, boy, listen to the animals. They're amazing. They're much more human than we realize. And of course, being a big mouth, I had to speak up and say, no, I think maybe you're making good points, but you may be missing the biggest point is we are animals. We are one of the species of animals. And we have different skills than some of the other animals. So let's not damn animals by saying they're like us. let's just let them be their species and we'll be our species. When I first taught at Colorado State, I entered the degree programs and I was in the College of Natural Resources, of course. That's always been my area. And they stuck me in natural resource management, which gave me heartburn right off the bat. We should not be trying to manage natural resources from our perspective. We should be listening to the mother, which is what, as sanctuaries, we talk about, telling us what we should do. And then if we manage what she's telling us to do, not the other way around. So, and I shifted to environmental interpretation and environmental education. And I still did all of them, but that sometimes our words are really important. And each time I've watched humans manage the natural areas, the natural world, it's failed almost every time because we don't understand why something is the way it is. We didn't let the fires burn for so long. And then Yellowstone burned down. And what happened? We got a much more vibrant, balanced ecosystem back. All those things. Until you totally understand what you're dealing with, which means listening to and following what the earth says, you can't make a good judgment of what should be done. Sorry, I talked too long. Stick in the middle.
Thank you, Jim. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, very much agreeing with a lot of what you're saying there, Jim. Very good points. And similar to what I was gonna say, because I was looking at science. We've got analytical science and we've got observational science. What I see the cultures that have lived with the land have done, they've had observational science, not from a head point of view, but it's feeling, feeling the winds, feeling the temperature, feeling the land, heart-based consciousness, essentially. And just feeling instinctively when it feels time to leave. It could be because the leaves are changing color a month earlier, could be because the rains are coming, whatever it is. Yeah. But yeah, my main point, that difference between analytical science and observational science. So I believe the cultures of had a science is just not analytical science. Talking stick in the middle.
Yeah, I was thinking about something you said there, Jim, about not managing natural resources. And my question is, well, how did our ancestors manage natural resources? And then Chris was talking about knowing from the land. I know you're there in Arizona. And when the volcano stopped erupting 1,000 years ago, a lot of Native Americans had to shift because the land wouldn't hold moisture anymore. The volcanic ash helped and, made it farmable a little bit and things like that. And I mentioned I like reading the Urantia here and seeing societies where they grew and fell and grew and fell. But 1,000 years ago, it seems we had a better handle on this. So, maybe that's not the right word. How would, say, from more of a Native American perspective, what would be the word for resource management?
Okay, you were defining it yourself, Robert.
Yeah.
So 1,000 years ago, things happened. Everybody was indigenous at that time. And what happened? Well, you just said it. They had to move. They followed the animals. They did what the mother told them to do. They didn't produce as many offspring. That's exactly how it was being managed. But it was being managed because Mother Earth, nature, was telling them what needed to be done, and they were paying attention. I think that's the big difference. We've seen, and some of these I spent I did on the wolves, of course, but so many other times, we think we know more than the Earth, about the Earth, which is really ego. I remember I remember I was back east, and I was studying, but I wasn't in a degree program yet. And they brought in this wonderful vine, which was going to help stop erosion, and it was going to help plants get established, and it was going to provide food for animals. And my God, it was wonderful what this was going to do. So they brought it in from Europe. It was the kudzu vine. Now, the problem was it started to produce all over the place, putting roots out. Second problem, there's no animal here that eats it. And so there was nothing to stop it. Third problem, when we tried to stop it, the roots went halfway to hell. And it was an ongoing battle. So what seemed like a good idea wasn't. And it's because it wasn't carried through. It was humans thinking from here. And if you listen to what they said, it made sense. Wow, this vine, it fills in open spaces, it's food, it's shelter, blah, blah, blah. But they didn't take the next step. What's nature going to do? How's nature going to deal with it? And so to this day, they're fighting that. That's probably 30 plus years ago, maybe more. And still, especially over the South, they fight it constantly because it takes over landscapes. It literally can take over trees, buildings, all those things. Stick in the middle. Sorry.
Very familiar with that from Asheville is overrun with it.
Yep.
But again, that was us attempting to be a keystone species, right? Kind of. We were trying to create some balance and fill what we thought was a need. We simply lacked the knowledge to do it, and we actually did the opposite.
Yes.
Which I wrote a word down earlier when one of you were talking. I think it was you. I think the difference you pointed out there between where we are now and what we need to let go of versus where we were 1,000 years ago or whenever The word that came to my mind is dominance. When we came into this age, and maybe it wasn't just the scientific age, but at some point we wanted to dominate our environment. We wanted to control the environment, right? Because our environment, we think it's trying to kill us, right? So what do we do with something that's trying to kill us? We dominate it, right? We have to put it into submission. And I'm just going to stop there and let you speak, Jim.
Oh boy, you're opening up things now, Robert. So, yes, absolutely. First of all, that's too much thinking with this and not allowing your heart and your spirit to come into it. The brain its number one job is to keep us safe. All the way into from the beginning, it's been its number one job. So if it sees what it thinks is a threat, it takes action. Where the heart may say, "Whoa, what are you doing? That's fine. That's not a threat." So you got that going on. Then you have the can of worms that you're opening, and that's religion. Religion stepped in, and what do we get? Human beings dominate nature. And it's said in a way, the way I always read it was, we were to be good stewards. But the way too many religious, I don't want to paint everyone with the same brush, but too many churches, too many sects paint it as, oh no, it means humans should dominate and be in control of everything. And we should use everything as we need it and we decide to do so. Those are two really opposite views on this. One is a positive one. We're part of nature, and part of our job, because we do have a brain that works better than most species, I hope, is to be in connection with nature and do things together. The other is to force nature to bow down and do whatever we want it to, which means at some time we use up all the resources and we deplete the planet. And that's the point we're getting to very rapidly now.
Yeah, I think you're saying there, Jim, is not necessarily the spiritual traditions, but the religions that formed around the spiritual traditions led to some dominance in how we interpreted things. And I quoted Corinthians when I was a month ago when I was in Costa Rica, the earth belongs to God, and how are you treating his house kind of thing, or her house, right? So yeah, I think that's where you're going there. I have more to say, but I'll let Chris go ahead and go.
Cool. Yeah, I'm just going to emphasize that, but whether it's religion or ourselves, I don't think we understand anything unless we understand that we're connected. Whereas the brain perceives everything from separation, and anything that comes from separation doesn't understand its true place, because there is no separation, only the perception of it. Now, I've got ways to explain that, but we won't go into that because we know I could talk for ages. But I think that's crucial. And I bring that back to religion. Any religion I find that works on perception of separation has a disconnect in its understanding of what life's about, which to me is the purpose of religion. Help us learn to live life and work with life, not separate us from it. Talking stick in the middle.
Yeah, and I was thinking, Jim brought up religion there, and I was thinking, what Jesus brought where he brought Judaism, right? Judaism is a very earth-based. We are the caretakers of the planet. The Baha'i faith is very much that way, beautifying the earth. The earth is a garden, and we're supposed to care for it. Christianity diverted somehow, and I don't know if it was them or just the Romanization of things, but one thing Jesus added to the faith was thought, right? Because there was always, don't do this or that, but there were actions. Don't kill, don't steal, those things, right? Where he added, don't be angry, don't lust, right? He took it back to a thought level. That was one of the true evolutions of Christianity, was what he was trying to teach us. Thoughts produce actions, right? What we think determines our destiny and everything around us. So I think about that dominance, that's kind of, I'm trying to, like, what Well, insights in a lot of things, but I come from a mechanical background, and we have called RCA, root cause analysis. And when you're repairing something, you're trying to figure out what caused a failure. You keep asking why until you can't ask why anymore. So what is the root cause of the failure? So getting us to where we are, where we've become almost the opposite of a keystone species. Right now, to me, I'm at the dominance level. We decided to dominate it. And as you mentioned, there's different sides of that coin where we didn't recognize the oneness of everything and how we're all interconnected. So what is the thought? How do we change our thinking? I mean, in this world, and particularly in a way that can be accepted, that the masses will accept. I mean, you got to take stepping stones. It takes generations to change thought patterns. We don't have generations to change this thought patterns. So how do we get there? I think your hand went up first there, Chris, or am I wrong?
I was probably in by half a second. Changing thought patterns, one of my favorite subjects. To me, the thinking aspect of our consciousness is just one aspect that we've got. And the first thing I point out to people is we have thinking, but we have an awareness that is aware of the thought. The awareness to me is the first step out of thinking. It's also the first step out of the world of time into the experience of the moment. Awareness is then the doorway to consciousness itself. Thinking is actually it's the most limited aspect of our consciousness, and it's the aspect that understands the least, both awareness and consciousness itself. In consciousness, everything is there. We actually already know everything. What we're learning is to become conscious through our brain of our consciousness. To do this, the thinking has to stop listening to itself and listen to our in the moment experience, which is felt through feelings, which is heart-based, and in the moment, which is the one place brain activity cannot go. Brain activity happens in time. We have to experience something. It goes down the nerve endings, which makes it in the past. Then it arrives in the brain. The brain only experiences and interprets after the experience. Therefore, it cannot go in the moment. To be in the moment is where we feel. So often when I'm talking to people and wanting to shift them out of time into the moment, I'll just ask something that gets them to feel. And once they're feeling and acknowledging it, I just drop them into those feelings. To me, that's the quickest way out of thinking, is through our feelings. Talking stick in the middle.
You're up, Jim.
Okay, so this is fun now. So I'm listening to, we have 7 people from Pine Ridge came on about 10 minutes ago. So they've been listening to this. So I was going back and forth with them as everybody was listening to Chris. So we got one of the grandmothers who was saying, she's saying a lot, but basically she was saying, it has been different before, but this earth, remembering that most indigenous people and others consider it, we've had many earths because of the big shifts. Some say this is the 5th, some say the 6th. So she's saying, yes, it's been different at other times, and I would be pointing at women. But right now, even our program tonight, and it's the nature of who's here, obviously, and she says, too many men are talking, too many women are sitting silent.
Oh,
Ouch.
I like it.
So I think, I don't know if she wants to say anything, but I think we should offer the mic to Sarah if she wishes to speak.
Hello, can I speak now? Okay, I went to therapy for 4 years to, deal with all my trauma and stuff, and the thinking process. I think it takes a toll on you, but you can choose not to think like that, I don't know what Jim and Christopher said was resonated with me, the thinking is has doesn't I don't know what I'm gonna say. Sorry, I have anxiety too. But you choose to do bright in this world. Um, what you do and what you say. Um, I don't know. I mean, I can't describe it. I lost it. um, just I
That's-
resonate with it because I had feelings of, thoughts or whatever, and I just know right and wrong, I was raised on right and wrong, and I just, yeah.
That's good. No, I think you've said it quite well.
Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Why sorry?
I
Thank
don't
you.
know.
Thank you for speaking. And yeah, we're all going through healing stuff now, so it's perfect time to share whatever we need to share. And that's
But
what
sorry, my thoughts are not me, there's somebody else,
mhm.
you know, and I had to learn that and experience that. I don't know how I came to that conclusion, but my thoughts aren't me, they're just my thinking thoughts. And I'm not going to act on them. I'm not, it's a choice you have. I don't know. I guess with all the negativity and stuff, you think like that. But you just have to have self control. That's all.
That's
Thank
good.
you.
And one of the grandmothers there is saying, thank you, niece, for speaking up. Good job. So yeah, it's I think we can broaden the message out from even that from it's too many men speaking, too many women still sitting silent. And part also to me is we still have this too many men speaking with men, too many women speaking with women when we all have to be speaking together. So I still see that as and boy, Robert, you said it and spot on, man. We don't have generations, not anymore. Uh-uh. We don't worry about the seventh generation right now. We worry about this one, our own, because it's imminent. What's going on? Thank you, Sarah. Stick in the middle.
Yeah, by the seventh generation on this course, we're going to be living in a biodome or something similar, right? We're going to be hunter-gatherers again. But yeah, what she was saying, and then like Chris said earlier, that awareness behind the thoughts, our thoughts are useful, but they're a tool. I would say our thoughts are the cart, not the horse. And we've gotten to where the cart is before the horse, right? The cart is trying to pull the horse. And it's going over a hill, over a cliff, and pulling the horse over the edge with it. So how do we get the horse back in front of the cart? And you mentioned too, grandmother mentioned that more feminine voice. And to be a keystone species is about balance. In the case of wildlife, I mean, it's there for reproduction, and it makes sure that those stay there and that they're present, and it keeps other reproduction under control. But for us, I think it's a lot different. It's beyond just those biological necessities, because there's a different awareness, whether you identify with masculine and feminine, and that's the big thing, is bringing them back. And we talked about this before. When we kill the divine feminine, The divine masculine died right with it. They're inseparable. And we talk about, patriarchy ruining things, and it was, but it wasn't the masculine, it wasn't the divine masculine, because it died the same time the divine feminine died. And that awareness, that connection, that nurturing part of the feminine, which doesn't mean female, but feminine, right? Is kind of what we're missing. We're the blazing sun, that's burning everything up, that just out of control masculine kind of energy, which is good at a distance. We get a few miles closer, it's over. But we no longer had the other half of that equation. So we're just kind of like getting too close to the sun, burning everything. So yeah, where's the feminine voice? And it's not enough to say that it's missing. Too many times in our history, we've done this. We've buried something, and then we say we've liberated it. But what did we do to truly liberate it? And I use, again, with slavery in America, we emancipated the slaves, and we walked over the hole we dug and said, hey, you're free, and walked away. We didn't throw them a rope or a ladder, right? So we say we're beyond something, but then we don't correct it at the same time. We can say women are equal, they have all this, but are they? What have we done to correct it, right? And look at all the laws that have gone into place to correct that. In slavery and other things throughout history, but we're still not there. Feminine. And we can't wait for legislation to do everything for us. Right? I mean, that's what we do. I mean, it's morality through legislation is what we've gotten to, and that can't be what it is. Jim, talking stick to you.
Well, and now it's clear just what a complete disaster and useless function legislation is globally, not just here. That old saying, and it's so true. The lunatics are in charge of the mental asylums. So we're not going to get anything functional out of anything else. There's only us. And I hear that now from more and more groups, and that's a good thing. On this balance thing you're talking about, I heard, it was my brother Lawrence Little Thunder some years back. He was also at Colorado State, and we did a lot of things together. So we were in nice balance. He spoke to the fact we were so out of balance. There was, and he would talk about natural balance and how, like you were saying, Robert, a species didn't have what it needed, so it stopped reproducing so much, or another species came in and ate some of them, or whatever went on to keep it in balance, or nature itself created an event that balanced it more. Well, we never had that. We were too smart and we are too good at killing and destroying that nothing came and ate some of us. Once we got on our feet, in the beginning, sure, I guess that was the case. We would make a pretty small meal for a dinosaur or a saber-tooth. But before too long, we were the mass murderers of planet Earth, and we still are. We can think too fast, too sharply, and stop anything from pretty much, except each other, from killing us off. That, I'm not saying that's good or bad, but it did stop natural balance. We don't have any natural predators other than other humans. And so that created an imbalance that we needed to sit with the earth and each other and say, okay, this natural imbalance is there, it's going to be there. So what else can we do to bring that back in balance? And those are the steps we don't take. We may recognize something, but we don't go far enough to understand it. You brought the Kogi up before. They are great at this. Okay, here's the problem. It exists. We can't deny it. Let's not deny it. So what do we do? What other things can we do to bring it back into balance? And if we don't, then what is the planet going to do? Which is exactly where their current prophecies are coming from. We haven't been able to do it, and they're saying, okay, so now Mother Earth is going to bring us into balance. So it's boy, we could do 5 hours just on that, Robert.
I want to ask you a question, Jim, before I let anybody else talk, but you talk about us going to the top of the food chain, but before we were at the top of the food chain, there were other, and there still are really today, other apex predators, like lions and other things who don't have predators. They're apex. They're the top of the food chain, unless we came along and ate them. But
Yes.
without us killing all these lions, they still maintained a balance, even though they were apex and had no predators themselves.
Yeah, partly, but they don't have a rifle by their side
Right?
or a machine gun, or unfortunately, as we're seeing play out almost every day, the ability to pick up a weapon, walk into a building and kill 500 more of either their species or another. That's the one thing that we have, which is not, in my opinion, a good thing.
Yeah.
So yes, and they are apex also, but within their ecosystem.
Yeah.
We're apex at the global level. And some of us, when you look at the behaviors, it's like, oh my God, we can't allow that to be apex.
Yeah. No, I just find curious because I mean, but what they still could have consumed everything in sight and reproduced beyond control, but for some reason they didn't.
Ah, okay.
You know,
Well, first, they're more in
Okay,
tune
good.
with the earth. So they're doing things in a way that is natural. Second, let's just pick one. The wolves. The wolves love a nice meal of venison. They just adore it. So a pack will take down a deer, an older or a sick or an injured deer, not the top deer like we would. And they'll have a lovely meal. And they'll start doing that. Well, if they eat too many deer, suddenly their food supply goes down. So either their internal mechanism stops them from reproducing so much, or they're going to start to die off because there's no food supply. So again, nature itself affects the balance.
Yeah, and I'm chiming in here a little bit. I don't know if you're done, but
Yeah, go.
um, they function on a need and not a want basis, right? They're like the trees, just be. We talk about being in a state of being. That's where they're at. They're not killing something. They're just doing their thing. Like a tree absorbs carbon from the air, right? They're just doing their thing. They're not looking for excess. They take what they need. And when they're full, they don't keep eating. They're not gluttonous. You don't see a lot of fat lions laying around because they just went on a rampage and ate, 2 or 3 times every day more than what they need. So anyways, Chris, you had your hand up. You still want to speak?
I'll chime in a little bit. Yeah, I think we have a large misrepresentation in some areas. We have the perception of being an apex species, but like you said, Jim, because we've got guns and things, if we were on our own, would we be, the top predator species? I don't think we would, because I think we'd be running and hiding and building, little forts to hold things out, like the predators, the wolves. You put a group of us in a paddock or on a hillside with a group of wolves, and we don't have our tools. How long would we survive? And I would suggest not very long. We have the illusion of being a dominant species, but we're not. It's just the illusion. And because of this illusion, we hold on to and think it's real. We actually miss our actual place. We're in the middle. We still are potential prey species. People still get taken down by bears and cougars and things like that. I hear in the US, New Zealand, there's not many birds will pick us to death, but we don't quite have that same issue. But in New Zealand, we used to have a protein supply issue, part of what I understand with the indigenous cultures here, which is partly why they ate each other, literally. Because there was no natural protein source. The one there was, which is the moas, they kill them off, and then it's like, where are we going to go for protein now? It made your neighbor look very appetizing and appealing. There's a natural balance, and we're out of our natural balance. Our tools took us out of our natural balance. Talking stick in the middle.
I was thinking about farming there, Chris, and we've kind of moved beyond the food chain a little bit, and we've created our own food chain. We're the only species probably that really has artificially created its own food chain through farming and animal husbandry and all those things, which is in some ways not good for the earth in other ways. Jim.
Our friends in South Dakota are having some fun with us today, which is really nice. So I just wrote some of it there, but Tom asked if I remembered the song that the Rolling Stones wrote for Mother Earth. You can't always get what you want, but you always get what you need, which you triggered with your words, Robert. They're very into asking for what they need, not what they want. And I've been doing that myself. I might make a big ask, but I don't say this is what I want. I say this is what I need to do the next thing. And if an animal, a species of animal needs something, they sense it. And they know what to do to get back into that space. I can't explain it to you. No one can. There's been all kinds of scientific research, but they have a sense of what has to be done, what has to shift and change to get back into their own balance. Even, I'll use the wolves again, my family. Look at how much we've hunted them here in Turtle Island. We have done everything we possibly could to destroy them and eliminate them. And there's more of them now than there was 50 years ago. They are resilient. They know other things that have to be done to stay and to be in balance. So I don't know. They've even kind of learned the borders of the places where they're safe and where they're not. There's a study that was just recently done. A lot fewer of them now are leaving Yellowstone Park to go into the outlying areas, because every time they do, they get hunted by the ranchers and politicians and whatnot. So there's a lot less incident of that going on. And how did they do that? I don't think they read a book. Maybe they did. I don't know. But something in them let them know that, okay, can't do that anymore. Can't go that way.
How do they pass it down to the next generation?
Great question. Yep. I wish they'd pass it down to us.
We write it in books and we still don't listen.
Yep.
They listen to what it works, and for me, it's observation. They learn from experience, which to me is a sad thing that humans don't quite do. We just, if it doesn't work, we're trying to find a way to overrule it or overrun it.
Yeah. True.
Goes back to that awareness you're talking about too, Chris.
Mm.
Being aware of the
Right.
thoughts, but also, going back and reflecting on them. And I'll read a quote in a minute, but go ahead if I can find it.
Yeah. I was going to say something that was come out for me as you're talking there, is that, part of me is thinking all politicians should have to learn to live off the land for a year before they become politicians. I think if they did that, and all our leaders had to learn to live off the land for a year successfully, I think they'd have a lot more respect for life in the circles of life. Talking stick in the middle.
Yeah, I'm going to read this quote real quick, Jim, because I thought about it, about that self-reflection, and I'll let you go. Because I've been trying to write in a journal for over a year now, and I keep starting and failing. But this was Seneca, a Stoic philosopher. I'm a huge fan of Stoicism. He says, I will keep constant watch over myself and most usefully will put each day up for review. For this is what makes us evil, that none of us looks back upon our own lives. We reflect upon only that which we are about to do, and yet our plans for the future descend from the past. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I was just, I was reflecting on what Christopher said. I love that. Let's let them all go out and have to live off the land and with the land without machine guns and rifles and whatnot. Because that would solve a lot of things. We wouldn't have to worry about things like term limits anymore, because virtually none of them would survive, probably beyond the first month.
I didn't want to say that part, but I was in my mind.
I did it.
Just tell them all mushrooms are edible. Just leave out the part. Some, all mushrooms are edible. Some only once.
Yeah, red is good.
Yeah, and you find mushrooms by feeling around under bushes in the desert country.
Yeah.
A little time left here. I'm coming back to that quote you put in there in that song. You can't always get what you want, but you always get what you need. Earth Mother gives all of us what we need. We take what we want, though. It's not given freely. We take it. Kind of wondering what we need in the grand scheme of things, but it's not just us, right? It's all of life on Earth. Mother provides what they need. Do they need a few less humans? Is she going to provide? Do we, as a species, to survive, need a few less humans? I don't know if that's the answer. I mean, is it definitely, I think so, but I think we could also change our ways significantly. Can we do it quick enough that we could sustain the current population? I don't know. I don't know if it's possible. But I think, was it Chris was up and then Jim?
Yeah, I was looking at what you're mentioning there, Robert. I remember hearing stories about when Europeans arrived in Americas, they found rivers so full of fish. The statement was you could almost walk across the water on the fish. And they pillaged and took it and almost extincted the amount of fish that were there and left it so depleted. They took a land of abundance and they pillaged it until there was very little left. And there's so many places we've done it in the oceans, we've done it on the land. And we live in this state of depletion and we think this is life, this is success. It's not. It's, to me, it's insane thinking and perception. You know, ideally, we should let all these ecosystems recover fully so we can live in a land of abundance. There is the land of milk and honey, but it's not by pillaging and depleting the land. It's letting all the environments survive and thrive. You know, we talk about, sustainable ocean fishing limits, but everything is at a point of crisis in the ocean that we hear about. And we're talking about maintaining something like that as sustainable fishing. It's not. The sustainable was before the big ships got out there and started pillaging everything. We need to look at not just what is minimal cultivatable by land, water, air. We should look what is this maximum sustainable in this environment and let it be there. You know, bring the starfish back and whatever species plays its role in every environment. And yes, it's going to put us at risk, because we're a pretty easily catchable meal species without our guns and things. Talking stick in the middle.
Go, Jim.
Yeah, these are pretty tough topics. And our friends up there are saying we got to remember to also have some fun and laugh at ourselves, even as we talk about these things. So I'll get back to that in a minute. They were saying that and I was going to bring this back in anyway. Both science and indigenous wisdom tell us no, there's no way that 8 billion people can survive long term on this planet. We will deplete the resources, which are finite. Many of the resources are finite, and we just generate too much pollutants into the planet. So that's a huge stumbling block. And that's the big thing. The Kogis say that's what Mother Earth is going to take care of if we don't. However, one of their, not all of them, but many of the tribes I know, and that's what I'm being reminded of, is that one of our solutions is, are we able to go back into the realm of the star nations? Can we spread out if we can't just be here? And I mean, that's a whole separate thing by itself. And I know some religions say that that's the answer. Other religions say that that's blasphemy. So I don't know, but that is another possibility, not being just here, to be somewhere else. I don't know where. And then to have on their fun part, they wanted me to say hello to Chris. It's always good to see him. And they want to know, where are the salmon and when are you bringing them back?
I'll see if I'm allowed to bring some over in my luggage with me.
For those that don't know the story, some time back, people from New Zealand took salmon from up where we were, up by the redwoods areas, and brought them to New Zealand, where they started farming them, I guess. I don't know if they're farming them or if they made them into free species, but yeah, so they're like, they took the salmon and so they've been kidding Chris about, when are you going to bring our salmon back?
I like it. New Zealand's been a good little animal species bank in some ways, even though we've got one of the highest extinction levels of any country. Recently, in Tibet, we have in New Zealand an animal called Tibetan tar, which is a type of, I can't actually remember if it's a deer or a goat, but in its natural land, it became extinct a wee while ago. So what they were looking at is reintroducing them back to their native land from New Zealand. So at times having animals relocated, but we struck the problem. Tibetan tar and other deer and goats, which were natural to New Zealand, have pillaged our natural environment. You know, certain plant species have struggled to survive and become depleted in areas because of it. You know, not just because of them, because of so many other species we've got, like rabbit, hares. We've got wallabies now, which are totally native to Australia, not New Zealand. Possums, so many animals we've got that are not native to this land and have been decimating our natural heritage. Because New Zealand was a bird continent. You know, our top predator was the housed eagle, which was huge. I think it had 12-foot wingspan or something. I forget the exact details. You'd have to look it up online, but the housed eagle was huge. It was the biggest eagle that's actually recorded as far as I'm aware. So yeah, talking stick in the middle.
Glad they mentioned having fun there, Jim, because I was just thinking about that before they said that. Sometimes our conversations here get a little serious. And it's kind of funny. This just came in yesterday because I've been thinking about that. Oh, here, and I'm gonna get more of these. This one happens to be Jesus, but like, because I forget to have fun. I get too serious. So it's just Jesus laughing. And I'm thinking about it because if you watch like The Chosen, he's a little bit of a jokester and he's having fun all the time. And we always think it's serious. We have to be serious and austere and all these things when we're on this spiritual path in particular. And I'm going to get more. I got to get a laughing Buddha, and I'm going to try to find every religious founder I can find in a laughing pose. And that's what's going to go on the walls in this room because I need to see that. I need to remember to have fun. You know, I've always said, I've flown hundreds of times. And I always said, if the plane's going down, I'm putting my hands up in the air and saying, we. It's going to be my last roller coaster ride. You know, I'll get everybody in the plane just put their hands up You know, what are you going to do? Enjoy it. Last roller coaster ride, right? So, I mean, no matter what it is, whatever the outcome of it is, all this is, have fun with it. Do what we can. Nobody's saying don't laugh, don't have a good time. You know, so, but yeah, and oh, shoot, I have 2 Yodas on my desk that a friend gave me, and neither one of them are laughing. So yeah, I got to find one of those. I guess a laughing Yoda. So, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I think it's in the Bible, if I remember it correctly. You'll know better than me, Robert. The statement, "Come ye as children unto the kingdom of heaven." And
Yeah.
when I reflect, yeah, when I reflect on that, I always look, when you look in the eyes of a child, we can't help but smile. But it's that childhood innocence that just trusts everything, loves everything. It's so open. It's open as like a sponge. It just takes everything in. And that's how we get to the kingdom of heaven. And I always have this feeling, if I forget to be a child, then I forget how to live life. And I find it's only when I play that I feel that vitality of life, that abundance, that youthfulness, that excitement, that joy that a child has just by being in the moment. If you ask a child what they want, it's like, want to be happy. That's it. Simple.
Yeah, it's all over the place, Chris. I think too, like, yeah, in the Book of Mormon, there's a passage, 2 Nephi 2:25. Adam fell that men might be, and men are that they might have joy. And if you look at Hindu, well, we have dancing Buddhas all over the place. If you look at Hinduism, you've got Krishna playing a flute and dancing. You've got Ganesh in poses dancing, Shiva dancing. All of these figures are having a good time, yet we're all so serious, in the words of the Joker to Batman. Go ahead, Jim.
Remember, one of my elders used to say, "I will never be part of any religion whose prophets don't sing and dance." And I've always thought, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, there was a movie we were watching here, I don't know, a few nights ago. We've been doing a lot of stuff here, and you get tired. So we were sitting and watching this movie, and I think I'm going to do my next program I might do out of this. At the end of the movie, one of the characters says, and it was an intense movie, but it was like a comedy action, but it had intense bits too. And one of the characters asks, "So are you happy?" And we all just stopped, like looking at each other. And I did some real soul searching on that night. Am I happy? What does happy mean? How do we know if we're happy? How do we go from joyful to happy? Do we? And all those, and I don't have any good solutions for it yet, but I can't say I'm happy. I can't even define what happy is. And I think we need that. We need that to be part of the stew. It would be like having a nice big stew without one of the main ingredients in there. Yeah, that's all. That came out of a movie of all things, right?
Point in saving it all if we're not going to enjoy it. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I love this field again. I find happiness is something that we all chase. We think things are going to make us happy, so we go into them. But it's always something that's just out of reach. We're always reaching for. But the more we focus into it and what we think is going to bring us happiness, we get closer and closer to the direct experience. And I find happiness is the precursor to joy. Happiness is in time and joy is in the moment. So that we really get what we're looking for when we switch from time to the moment. And that's where we feel the joy of something. So instead of seeing it ahead of time, it's in our moment. But we've sort of got to go into what that perception of happiness is to find it. Like sitting on the beautiful beach under a palm tree there, Jim. to me, that would bring me happiness, joy, and love and compassion all in one place. It's the simplicity of things, it's not complicated. Feeling the joy of something and then sitting with it enough. Like this morning, I was out with my flatmate and we were just sitting on this piece of land, breathing the air. We were there for a wee while and we're just sitting there, not talking, not saying anything. I noticed how when I was present, I heard the birds so much more clearly. I could feel things happening, the movement of the air. It was just beautiful. Just being there. I had no wants, no sense of need, nothing. Just by being. Cool. Talking stick in the middle.
Chris, we're about to wrap here. The question here started out was, is humanity a keystone species and how can it be one? And it we went a whole bunch of different places, but we never left the subject, believe it or not. And I'm just looking at some of the words I wrote down. One, what is the problem? A lot of it's dominance. A lot of it is want. How do we change that? We change our thoughts, our thought patterns. How do we change thought patterns? We change it by going deeper than them. We go back to who we are, the I am, the awareness behind the thoughts. We connect and we see the oneness in nature around us. And with all things, and at the end we came to, we got to laugh and enjoy it. Happy people don't destroy things, not intentionally anyways. Happiness is contagious. That's kind of my summary without using AI companion of the meeting here and where we need to go. But I want to give you just a chance to any closing statements before we end this here. Chris, and then I'm sure Jim will say something.
Yeah. Once again, I'd like to say thank you, Sarah, for when you added your contribution. It was, for me, I really appreciate it. I appreciated hearing from you, and I'd like to hear more. And whatever it is that you feel to share, I feel the worth of it as you shared it, and I'm open to hearing more. However it comes for you, I'm comfortable with, and would love to hear that. I'd like to say thank you to our brothers and sisters in Pine Ridge too. Really appreciate all of you, even though I've never met you. I feel a great appreciation and yeah, all that you add. So thank you. Talking stick in the middle.
Thank you.
All right. Any other closing remarks?
I really like what you just said, Robert. I'm just sitting there. Happy people don't destroy things. There's a lot of truth in that. Why would you? So let's get happy.
Source, how are we ending this, Jim?
Hello?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say with all the negative, mindsets and everything, why would anybody want to be negative? I certainly wouldn't want to be negative. I would look at it like a positive because everything, around the world is so negative. Why be mad or sad about it, Why don't you just be positive and live life? That's the way I think.
Be happy, be aware. So again, thank you for everybody that came here tonight. Thank you, Jim, for reminding me yesterday that I needed to do this tonight. And
I didn't know it was you, but yes.
first thing that came to my mind, I only seen the email addressed to one person, so I figured you were poking me there. So, something to think about, and remind too, we can't change it on the global scale. We change it in our own world. How do we be a keystone species in our own world, in our own environment? right? Those starfish are just worried about that one little pool of water. They're not changing the world. They're changing one little pool of water. What's in your little pool of water that you can change, that you can be Keystone in? You know, if you can get out and touch the world, touch it, but just your little pool, and it's your little pool. So, how do we want to close this, Jim?
I don't know. How do you want to close it?
I think with thankfulness and gratitude. How about that?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Everybody that's here,
Hmm.
Pine Ridge, the people who are here in Zoom, the wonders of Zoom, and
People
everything we
who-
can't see that's here.
Yeah, people who play it later.
Yeah.
All those, my friends up in Hopi land, I remind you of the shirts. I was there when they were created some years ago. And it was right on the front of the shirt, don't worry, be Hopi. So you guys keep it up.
Yeah. Gratitude to those who came before and those who've got to come after us and continue it
Yeah.
on. So, and we're
Yep.
sorry. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. And much gratitude to all of life and the joy that I feel with these meetings. Thank you.
So we are officially closed.